Hey everyone, Dockwell here, and in today's video, I'm going to be going over Desolator. I'm going to show you what it does, how to use it, and when to buy it. So to start off, let's look at the details of Desolator. It's a 3,500 gold item, so kind of right in the middle, not a huge item, but not a very small item either. It gives you 55 damage, and then has a passive that reduces the enemy's armor for 7 seconds by 6 armor. And then also every time you get a kill on an enemy, when they have this debuff applied to them, you get +2 damage all the way up to a maximum of 30 damage. So as you can probably already tell just from the description of me reading that it gives 55 damage and the passives, this item is all about the damage, specifically right-click damage and physical damage. So if you didn't know, there's a little bit of a difference between right-click damage and physical damage. Right-click is pretty much always physical for the most part, except for a few specific instances, but we're not going to get into those yet. And then physical damage can be damage from abilities. Usually it will say physical though. So it's not that it's only right-click damage, it's just physical damage is usually right-click damage. They're kind of synonymous in some ways. And then armor is the thing that you build or that you get over time with agility to protect yourself from physical damage. And so reducing that armor by simply clicking somebody, if you have Desolator, amps up that physical right-click damage that you do to the enemy. So now let's jump in and show you how this item actually works in practice. So I picked PA here, not just because she's a classic Deso buyer, but also because you don't just have to right-click the enemy to get that minus armor debuff on them. You can also use abilities like Stifling Dagger here that do physical damage, but also apply attack effects. And most of those abilities that apply your attack effects also apply Desolator. So if you use this, you can see that the enemy takes more damage and gets this Desolator debuff applied. Also keep that in mind, you do apply this before your attack damage actually hits. So when you jump in, it's not like the first attack does less damage, it actually does the same amount of damage as the other attacks. It's not like you have to apply it once and then keep attacking more. That's usually how it works for almost every item or ability or anything like this in the game. Then lastly, with just Desolator and no items on this axe, let's just look at the difference here of how much damage we actually do with this Desolator. So that's a lot of damage. That almost killed the axe in one kind of volley with Methodical. But now let's do it without the Desolator. So let's jump in here. And you can see that is a lot less damage just from one item and with no stacks for extra damage. So you can see how much this actually does, especially with right-click heroes. So now let's briefly talk about other heroes other than PA that like to buy Deso. Obviously, PA is a perfect example because she really is all focused on physical right-click damage, and she has a crit to go with it that amps up that crit even more. So any hero that's kind of similar to PA likes to buy Deso. We have Wraith King. That's another hero that can buy Deso. He has a built-in crit that can do more damage. Lifestealer is one because he's all about physical damage, but that Desolator build can be a little bit worse these days. People are going more for sustain. So it's not that this hero likes to buy it all the time, it's just definitely possible. But a hero like Anti-Mage, like Slark, these heroes don't really rely as much on right-click damage as other mechanics. Slark on stealing agility and really getting damage and amping up that way, as well as survivability with the ult. Anti-Mage with burning mana and those kinds of things, not really just on physical right-click damage. But another hero like TA, very much a good physical damage hero and likes to amp up that minus armor that she already has. So any other hero that has minus armor built in any other way with their other abilities, this item makes that even better. So heroes like TA, but then heroes like Slardar, they're more about control and vision. That minus armor on their ultimate, yes, it makes it decent, but you don't necessarily want to waste your time buying a Desolator. So that kind of leads us to, when do we actually buy this item and why do we buy it? So you may have noticed at the beginning I said that this item only costs 3,500 gold and it's a mid-tier item. So this is why a lot of carries don't just default to buying Deso, because it seems like this item is OP. But yes, it's very good for right-click damage, but it gives you basically nothing else. It doesn't really amp up your farm in any specific way. Obviously do more damage to every creep you hit, but it's not that much. There's no like AoE ability or anything. It's just the one creep that you're hitting. It also just gives you a ton of damage, but no stats. So no tankiness, no more HP, no more armor for yourself, no more mana pool for casting anything, no health regen or mana regen. So it's not the greatest farming item early, even though it's a relatively cheap item. So you kind of want to go early for the Desolator, but if you go it super early, you don't have the sustain necessary, you're pretty squishy, and then it takes up a slot where you could actually get a different item, a late game item that is actually more powerful than Desolator for right click damage. So 2 examples of that would be AC. So we can click that here. And this also reduces armor by 6. So it's only 1 less and gives you some other stuff. It gives you armor yourself and attack speed. Or we can go Dataless. And this is just a raw damage item that costs a little bit more because it just gives you a crit, gives you even more damage. It's a little bit better than Desolator just in pure damage overall. So now you can see why it's not like every single right click hero is just automatically buying Desolator, because it's kind of risk reward. You want to get it early, but it's not the best farming item overall. It's more for doing damage to enemies, but it is a lot of money just to throw in for this thing that if you don't get it early, if you don't get those damage stacks, you'd rather get an AC. That's why something like Slardar, he'd rather get that AC just because it gives him tankiness when he's jumping in. It also gives him attack speed, which is great, and it only reduces their armor by 1 less. So that's why it's more expensive, more effective, but more of a late game item that you'd rather have in your inventory. But it's not to say that you don't want Desolator at all, but you can just see how it is a little bit risk reward. There are some trade-offs for buying Desolator. And then the other big problem with this item is that it doesn't build well. Yes, Orb of Blight is pretty good because you can have it in the laning stage, you can have it pretty early, but then it's an awkward buildup. You just have to get 2 Mithril Hammers. These are pretty expensive and they just give you damage. So yes, having Orb of Blight in your inventory early can be good, but then until you actually get the item, this is just a lot of gold that you're spending that doesn't really do much in your inventory, and you have to save up a lot, especially because it's like an early to mid-game item that you want to get pretty quickly. So that is another reason why the trade-offs for this item aren't that great for a lot of other items, let's say like an Echo Saber. This is just a better buildup. You have mana regen, you have tankiness with the Ogre Axe, not nearly as expensive as compared to the parts you're building for Desolator. So we can see that is another reason that this is a kind of awkward item, kind of right in the middle. You would love to buy it. It's very much a luxury item that you would love to have on a lot of heroes, but a lot of times it's just not worth it to go because it doesn't give you anything else. It doesn't give you that tankiness. It doesn't give you any regen. It doesn't give you a stun or any kind of active ability that's good. It's just pure raw damage, and it's not pure raw damage that is as good as some of the other more expensive items like Dataless. So that's why if you could afford to and it's later, you would rather just go for a Dataless. But this can be extremely, extremely effective in combination with even an AC or a Dataless. But that gets pretty greedy in certain circumstances. But some heroes that are innately tanky or whatever can afford to go this. And that, everyone, is Desolator. I hope this helped you understand the item, what it does, how to use it, and when to buy it. As always, guys, if you liked the video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.